Good morning. Some words from Psalm 33. Right, take that back. Not Psalms 33. Psalm 1. Some words from Psalm 1. Blessed are those who walk hand in hand with goodness, who stand beside virtue, who sit in the seat of truth. For their delight is in the spirit of love, and in love's heart they dwell day and night. They are like trees planted by streams of water that yield fruit in due season. Their leaves flourish, and in all they do, they give life. And we take these words within this morning, for we know that we are gathered together here today in life, in love, and also knowing that we are recognizing this Memorial Day weekend, all those who have lost loved ones, friends, whether friends or family in active service, no matter when it may have occurred, those loved ones are still in our hearts. And so we acknowledge and honor each and every one of them and enfold them in this time of prayer. We know that we are gathered in spiritual community, that there is no separation between us. And as we stand in the truth of this, we can hold the blessings of what it means to be planted like trees next to a stream. We receive the nourishment of spiritual community, of the words that uplift us and remind us of the very truth of our being. And we give thanks in the name and through the nature of the indwelling Christ. And so it is. Amen. For those of you who would care to, please feel free to join me in our opening statement of faith. It should be in the chat box there for you. And you can just hear the words and know that they are, my words can be your words. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe. God, the good omnipotence. And I am one with that presence and power. It's so great to be able to be with you here today. And speaking of being with people, this morning, our beloved Steve Akers stopped by just to say hello. I ran into him in the parking lot on my way in. We had an opportunity to sit on the benches out front and have a great conversation. He's doing well. And he said, I told him I was going to do a shout out because those of you who are members, long-term members of our community, you know who he is. Steve said, tell everyone, Steve is sending love and light. And if that isn't just quintessential Steve, I don't know what is. And that is truly a representation of who and what we are in unity as a whole, and certainly in unity of Pasadena, because we honor the many paths that lead to the one God. We are here to send out light and love and to know this oneness that we talk about every time we come together, and we spread it throughout all across all of humanity. We have in our music ministry today our congregation songs that we've been working with this month, Swing Wide the Doors by Daniel Nahmod. We'll also have selections from Karen Drucker, Robert Anderson, and another Daniel Nahmod to close us out. But each and every one of us are part of the music ministry. So I invite you to join in singing Swing Wide the Doors.
Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Here we go
now. Maybe do a little bopping around where you are.
this heart of mine.
Say hello to one another there in the chat box.
I'm not holding it in.
Let's not hold it in.
I'm gonna shout it out loud.
Yes.
I understand now what I'm here for.
We're here for.
And what this life is about.
Yes.
It's about love.
It's about love.
It's about laughter. It's about comfort and smiles. It's about love.
Love.
It's about kindness. It's
Kindness.
about hearts open wide.
Hearts open wide.
It's about love. It's about passion. It's about taking a chance. It's about love. It's about service. It's about lending a hand. About lending a hand.
Yes.
Swing wide the doors. The time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine.
We are so blessed.
There's a voice that I've heard for years. I learned to keep it inside.
We're not doing that anymore.
Well, now it's coming in loud.
Yes, it is.
I want a deeper life.
Deeper life.
It's about love.
Love.
It's about laughter. It's
Laughter.
about comfort and smiles. It's about love. It's
Love.
about kindness.
Kindness.
It's about hearts open wide. It's about love. It's
Love.
about passion. It's about taking a chance. It's about love. It's about service. It's about lending a hand. It's about love. It's about laughter. It's about comfort and smiles. It's about love. It's about kindness. It's about hearts open wide. It's about love. It's about passion. It's about taking a chance. It's about love. It's about service. It's about lending a hand. About lending a hand. Swing wide the doors. The time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. All right now, swing wide the doors. The time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine.
Virtual hugs. Missing all of you. We are still a vibrant, thriving community, even though we may not be together in person. The vibrancy that is who we are is very much alive. We have a vision here. United in spirit, we are a beacon of light and love that catalyzes a global we-volution. We experience our vision through our mission. And I invite you to say it with me if you would like. Creating community, living love, teaching truth, serving spirit. These statements represent our intention as a ministry, and they are our guiding light. Here are a couple of things I'd like to highlight for you that are happening. Those of you, if you haven't already had a chance to do it, our beloved Sandy Branshaw has done her second book review. I believe it's Tech Not Han, and I believe it's Being Peace, that is posted on our Facebook page. So take a moment and check in with her on her latest book review. I think you'll enjoy it. Also, The Universe is Calling book study group. We are accepting registrations for that, which you can do through our calendar online, and you'll be able to receive the Zoom link to participate in it. It begins on Wednesday, June 3rd from 6 to 7 p.m. If you're interested in being a part of Universe's Calling book study group, again, you can find it on our calendar on our website. And once you register, then you'll receive a link to be able to join the Zoom group starting June 3rd. I'm going to be facilitating a class on meditation practices, which begins on Thursday, June 4th from 10 to 11 a.m. So it'll be a mid-morning opportunity to come into a deeper relationship with God as we practice with one another during the month of June. Also, you can go to our website. There's a link on our calendar. You can register online and receive a link by Zoom to be able to participate in it. Those of you who were with us last week, you may recall that I mentioned starting this week, when it comes time to receive our offering, you will no longer see me holding my check in my hand, because I'm going to be holding my phone in my hand. Yay! We are launching the mobile app giving, the giving portion of our mobile app. Our mobile app is still under development, but the giving portion is live starting this week. You'll be able to text 77977, okay? 77977. Type in Unity of Pasadena. When you do that, you'll get a link that will take you directly to our app where you can make your tithe, offering, and contribution online. And I'll remind you of it when we get to that point in the service. We still host our virtual hospitality after service at 11:45, also by Zoom. We have it in our Facebook page as a link, so you can find it there, as well as on our calendar. So you can go to our calendar and click through to get the Zoom link from there as well. So hospitality at 11:45. So we are still connected, as I said, even though we may be apart physically. This is the time in our service where we prepare ourselves for meditation. And we do that with we begin this time with the reading of the daily word. So I invite you to become comfortable, take a nice deep breath. Today's daily word, faith. I invest my faith only in possibilities for good. I invest my faith only in possibilities for good. The parable of the talents in the Gospel of Matthew tells the story of a wealthy man entrusting sums of money to 3 of his servants before leaving on a journey. When the man returns, he praises and rewards the 2 servants who, through wise investments, have doubled the funds entrusted to them. A 3rd servant who, acting in fear, hid the money entrusted to him, receives no reward. The divine faculty of faith that is part of my spiritual inheritance is more valuable than money. I invest my faith wisely by believing and trusting that possibilities for good are present, even where good has not yet manifested, and I act on that belief. My positively directed faith brings rich rewards in consciousness. The scripture comes from Matthew 25, verse 21. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And again, the daily word today is faith. I invest my faith only in possibilities for good. And our meditation song, I Am So Blessed, by Karen Drucker.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am blessed.
The real you. Everything and everyone that God creates is an extension of itself. Wholly spiritual and spiritually whole. Our true self, our Christ self, is the core of our being. It is really who we are. Not God and us, but God as us. A shining essence, a shining light to our world. Our essential oneness with all that is, God omnipresent. Acts 17:28 tells us, in God we live, we move, we have our being. God is as close to us as our own breathing, nearer than our hands and feet. As we move into meditation today, contemplate just how wonderfully made we are. So let us close our eyes and breathe gently into the silence. Give yourself completely to God's whisper in your ear. Be mine.
Open your eyes and emerge from the silence. Hold to your hearts the sheer magnificence of your own creation. You are God's enduring gift to the world.
Well, the problem is not what you haven't got. You got everything you need, and the proof can be found springing from the ground. There's a mighty tree from just a little seed. No, what we want here is to get very clear and put our heart's desire first. Till we make up our mind, we're sure to find the questioning voice of the universe, asking what is your intention? What do you want to do? Tell me what is your intention? What can I do for you? Tell me what is your intention? What do you want to be? And what, just tell me what will make you free. Well, you don't need to know just how it's gonna go. Give the details up for now. When there's nothing between you and your dream, that's more important than the when, where, or how. 'Cause life's precious gold is an ember in our soul, waiting to become a fire. And no matter the choice, there's always a voice saying, I will give you more than you can desire. Just tell me what is your intention? What do you want?
What is your intention? What do you want to do? There is an ember in our soul that is waiting to burst into a flame. This is part of what we are talking about, and now the second in this series on Even Mystics Have Bills to Pay by Reverend Jim Rosemergy. And we began with some big ideas last week about really focusing on seek the kingdom first. I mentioned we are going to be using this symbol throughout the series, the open circle of the Enzo Zen symbol, because it is a reminder to me about we are not trying to make ends meet. What we are trying to do is leave the space for presence, for God, for all that is to reveal itself in each and every moment and in each and every circumstance that we are experiencing. Our daily word for today about turning our faith to possibilities in good. There are always, always, always possibilities. Jim Rosemergy says, we have needs that we expect God to fill, and he puts it in the form of a question. I want to share day 3 of an excerpt from day 3 of the practices he gives at the end of the book for putting this into practical application in our lives. He titles it saying, God does not fulfill needs. I'm going to say that again. God does not fulfill needs. He says, for thousands of years, humankind has believed that God fulfills needs, and because of this belief, we have prayed and prayed. Sometimes it appears as though God has answered our prayers by giving us what we think we want. At other times, it seems that God does not care about us, for our wishes are not granted. Spiritual awareness reveals that God does not act through needs. Spirit's avenue of expression is an awareness of its self. Spirit's avenue of expression is an awareness of its self. What God can do, God is always doing. He says, today, rather than hold up your need to God, give God your attention and open yourself to a relationship with Spirit and the discovery that you are a spiritual being. Now, I know that there's a way in which the statement, God does not fulfill needs, can feel kind of jarring. You know, I mean, I understand that, because there is this piece of us that when we come in God, we are looking for comfort. We're looking for God to take care of us. And this is the paradox of it, is that in recognizing God itself, we are taken care of. In recognizing God itself, we are taken care of. So if we ask, yes, we do receive. The question is, are we asking the right questions? Are we asking rightly? Are we asking from our highest expression of self? Because when we ask the right questions, we will get very different answers. I had mentioned last week when I began the series that I will also be weaving in pieces from this book, Economic Dignity by Gene Sperling. And I want to share a few words from the chapter on economic metrics. And he's talking about measuring economic growth. He quotes Robert Thaler, who is a Nobel Prize-winning economist, who said that it's a mistake in many human activities to focus more on what can be measured than what is important. See, this is the difference between asking God to fulfill needs and being aware of God itself. Okay? It's the same principle, in effect, that we can focus more on what can be measured than on what is most important. He continues to say that economic growth by itself should never be considered an appropriate, ultimate end goal for economic policy. Economic growth by itself should never be considered an appropriate, ultimate end goal for economic policy. Its value lies in the degree it serves as a means to lift up what is most universally treasured and precious in people's lives. You see, when we have the awareness of God itself, we are uplifted and we are placed front and center into what is most precious and treasured in our lives. He continues to say that his goal in doing a full book on economic dignity is to develop a deeper definition of what it means that can be analyzed, critiqued, debated, and hopefully deployed in shaping and prioritizing policy choices. Our awareness of spirit itself can be analyzed, critiqued, debated, and hopefully deployed in shaping and prioritizing our policy choices about how we want to live our lives and where we want to go. He continues, and I'll close with this. He says, qualitative goals in no way minimizes the obligation to engage in rigorous analytical and evidence-based policy. He says, though, it simply forces us to ask what matters most in the lives of people. So we should be serving that in determining these priorities. So whether we're looking for our own economic dignity or the economic dignity as for society as a whole, when we focus on the awareness of spirit itself, we ask different questions about how we can engage the kingdom of heaven and how engaging in the kingdom of heaven shapes the choices that we make for ourselves and others. Now think about that. We ask from a very different place when we are already established and recognizing source itself as the fulfillment of the need. Back to our Enso circle that is not closed, that is perpetually open for spirit to reveal itself. Emily Cady in Lessons in Truth, which is one of my favorite all-time unity books, she says supply, Jim Rosebergy says it in the book, and even mystics have bills to pay, and then I want to elaborate on it in Lessons in Truth. Jim Rosebergy says that it's not supply and demand, it's supply equals demand. Supply equals demand. So let me give you a demonstration of this. There is no demand being placed. Demand. Supply equals demand. When the demand is placed on the supply comes in. Emily Cady says it this way. She says the supply is always equal to the demand, but there must first be a demand before the supply is of use. There must first be a demand before the supply is of use. She says that one of the unerring truths in the universe, and she says by universe, I mean the spiritual and natural worlds combined, is that there is already provided a lavish abundance for every human want. And she says another truth, again, is that the demand must be made before the supply can come forth to fill it. And to recognize these two statements of truth and to affirm them are the whole secret of understanding faith. Faith based on principle. Faith based on principle. The switch doesn't care whether I'm Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Hindu. It doesn't care whether I'm black, white, Asian, gay, straight, male, female. It doesn't care. It is principle. It will respond in same when the demand is made. And the demand is made upon supply, and supply is the awareness of God as source. God is the source, supply is the consciousness of God. And this is what fills the need. He says that, as I just pointed out, that God is not supply, that God is source, him meaning Jim Rosemergy, and that a consciousness of God is the supply. And so let us think about this idea of God as supply and put it into the realm of unerring principle, always available, because if we put God into pronoun form or some sort of anthropomorphic idea, then God becomes like Santa Claus and also becomes capricious. Oh yes, maybe we'll get our prayer answered, maybe we won't. You know, when God becomes anthropomorphic, then we get this God that wavers. When we have God stand as universal truth, as universal spiritual principle, it is unerring and is always available. From John, chapter 10, verse 30, Jesus says, "The Father and I are one." The Father and I are one. And it continues on in chapter 14, verse 20. In that day, In that day, when we know this, in that day, you will know that I am in my Father, you are in me, and I am in you. There is no absence of supply. With a consciousness of God comes the security of knowing that our needs are met and that our well-being is assured. Life can be sweeter when we live in the awareness of the presence within us and around us, and without it, it can be quite bitter. We know that we've entered into the kingdom of heaven, one of the ways that we know we've entered that kingdom. And when I say asking ceases, I mean that we stop fruitlessly searching and trying to run around and make ends meet like a dog chasing its tail. The asking that ceases is about trying to have the material needs met, and what becomes then is a resting in the knowing that the presence is here. This is that the Father and I are one, and that we know that we are in God and God is in us. But there are, admittedly, I'm sure that sounded loud, there are admittedly times where we find barriers to that awareness that block us from the sunlight of the Spirit. We have what Jim Rosemergy refers to in the chapter in the book as human pennies. We have the penny that we are holding on to. And he uses the example of Antoinette Bourignon, who was leaving her home to go pursue a spiritual life and left with a penny. And she heard the voice say to her, "Is that where your faith is in a single penny?" She drops the penny because she knows that she can go forward. And I remember in our time, the Peace Pilgrim, many of you may remember Peace Pilgrim, who walked across the United States several times on behalf of peace, carrying nothing with her other than the clothes on her back and her walking stick. She always found shelter. Everything she needed, food, everything she needed was provided for. But we all have a penny. And Jim Rosemergy points out three that are quite common, because I think we can all identify with them. One is judging by appearance. Oh my God, okay? Judging by appearance. Thinking lack is the second penny that we tend to hold on to. And the third one is resentments. We hold on to resentments. He says these three pennies are our pennies to discard, that as we discard them, they open up the flow, they break through the wall, and the sunlight of the Spirit is then able to shine on us, swing wide the doors of this heart of mine, that as we let go of these, then we know the true value of who we are, our true worthiness. Judging by appearances. One of the ways that that comes to my mind in forefront is comparing my insides to your outsides. Oh my gosh, how many times have we done that? Where we've looked at something that somebody has that we think we want, and there's a truism to that, but it gets turned around to some feeling of unworthiness about ourselves, that we can't have it for XYZ reason. And the truth of it is we have no clue what's going on in that person's life. I'll share a story with you. This was many years ago. As some of you know, I've been a member of a 12-step program for quite a long time. And in my early days of sobriety, when I was still thinking I missed the social side of what that represented, of course, that was not my reality, but I still missed the fantasy of the social side of what that represented. I was out by the pool in my apartment complex, and there was a family across the pool from me, and they were handing mimosas over the gate and enjoying themselves. The adults were, the kids were playing in the pool, and the adults were enjoying their mimosas. And I sat there and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wow, that looks really nice. I wish I could do that. And I knew that that was not going to be part of my reality anymore, but it looked good by appearances. The next day I was in the laundry room at the apartment complex, and that same woman came into the laundry room saying words. I couldn't understand her. And frankly, I thought that she was mentally disabled. I thought she was retarded because I couldn't understand. She was slurring her words. And then I realized that she was completely intoxicated in the middle of the day. was searching for her watch because she couldn't remember where she had left it. When I compare my insides to your outsides, I come up short at times, and the reality of it is that I don't know what's going on in your insides. Now, thankfully and coincidentally, as it may be, I ran into her at a 12-step convention sitting 2 tables apart in a room with 1,500 people in it. And it began a relationship that was a blessing for both of us. But this is my point, though, is that we never know what it is that's going on. And if we try to judge by the level of appearances, we will likely judge awry because we cannot see the entire picture. What we get are glimpses of what is being revealed as it's being revealed. And we have to be willing to set aside appearances in order to be in the middle of it and allow it to reveal itself to us as what it is that we need to know. We also think lack. How many times can we go there where we are looking at our bank book, or we're looking in the cupboards, or we're looking someplace else where we think that there is lack? Jim Rosemergy says this. He quotes something also from Matthew, which ties into the comment about God does not fulfill needs. This is what the scripture says in Matthew 25:29. For all those who have, more will be given, and they will have abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. When we focus on lack, all we see is lack, and we increase our anxiety, and then we lose even what it is that little that we had, because we lose our peace of mind. Now, when I talk about this, I'm not saying a random thought that passes through our mind. I'm talking about a way of being in the world that always looks at everything as being half empty. Because then we will always see half empty. But if we are willing to hold the thought that the consciousness of God is our supply, then we can begin to recognize that there is abundance there available for us. Our affirmations and denials help us shape this way of thinking. There's a fabulous chapter here in Lessons in Truth on denials and affirmations. Denials are to clear away, and affirmations are to bring in and make room for the emptiness, make room for what is coming. And lastly, the penny that we can let go of is holding resentments. Resentments keep us imprisoned. And there are processes that we can look at for getting rid of resentments. There are a variety of ways to be able to do that. But one of the ones that is most helpful for me is to recognize, once again, that I don't know what's going on in someone else's insides. Also from Matthew, coming out of what we know as and refer to as the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Now, we already know that God doesn't need to forgive. God doesn't forgive because God doesn't hold a grudge. It's not like that at all. We are the ones who hold the grudge. And as long as we are unwilling to forgive others, then we are going to be in a place of self-condemnation. And if we can allow others the right, perhaps, to be wrong, if we can allow others the space to know that they, just like us, are working this deal out as best as they can, and if they could have done different, they would have done different. Resentment is not about condoning a behavior. It's not ours to deal with. That's between them and their God. Letting go of resentment sets us free. And here's the rub on that one. Here's the rub on that one, which is back to as we have also forgiven our debtors. No matter how right I may be in being disturbed by that person, I am never more wrong than when I'm right. I am never more wrong than when I'm right. Because when I'm right, then what gets kicked up is our own self-righteous indignation. We don't want to look at that. We'd much rather look at what the other person did. And so the forgiveness is for ourselves. for even having that, for that being a part of us. So we let go of it for ourselves, and it also brings up then, I think, a natural compassion. In economic dignity, I want to come back to it one last time. Gene Sperling says, economic dignity will never have the precision of an economic metric. It is not precise, but then it may lead us to be more often approximately right than precisely wrong. Economic dignity may not be precise. It will ask us to go outside the comfort zone of numerical measures to the hearts and minds of people. It is not precise, but then it may lead us to be more approximately right than precisely wrong. The affirmation that I want to leave you with for this week is, I release all that stands between me and an awareness of God. I release all that stands between me and an awareness of God. For as we do that, we are truly blessed. And let that be your practice this week, in discarding those 3 pennies in whatever way that they show up in your life. Release all that stands between you and awareness of God. Amen. This is the time in our service where we share of our gifts and tithes and offerings. Just as life, as God creates in a myriad of forms, so we receive in a myriad of forms through different channels to be able to share your gifts and tithes and offerings. You can certainly go to our website and donate online. You can mail a check to our building. Believe me, we will get it. It'll get deposited. Okay, it will get deposited. You can certainly set it up through your bank for an online check to come to us as well. And then, as I mentioned, starting today, you're going to see me holding my phone because we have launched the mobile giving portion of our app. And so, as a reminder, you can text 77977. That's 77977. Put in Unity of Pasadena. They recommend using all caps. It is less likely to try to auto-correct you. Damn you, autocorrect. I don't know about you, but boy, sometimes that's been a surprise to me. But put in Unity of Pasadena, and once you do that, you will receive a link which takes you directly to the giving page. One of the other nice features about this is you have the opportunity, if you so choose, to add a small percentage onto your contribution to cover the processing fees, which then enables us to receive the net amount you had in mind to make for your tithe this time. So please know that that is available to you. And so join me as we say our offertory statement. God is the source of my overflowing supply, and I am grateful. And now another Daniel Nahmod, more than enough.
There is more than enough in a universe that you created. There is more than enough on a planet of sacred design. There is more than enough for humanity made in your image. Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Your infinite love made me, made everything I see. is your infinite love. Let my soul know the truth, whatever I choose to do. Your infinite love will prove more than enough. There is more than enough in a universe that you created. There is more than enough on a planet of sacred desire. There is more than enough for humanity made in your Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I think I'd go without? Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I think I'd go without? Your infinite love made me, made everything I see, and all that will ever be is your infinite love. Let the world know the truth, whatever we choose to do, your infinite love will prove more than enough. Your infinite love made me, made everything I see, and all that will ever be is your infinite love.
All that will ever be is your infinite love. And so we do give thanks for the tithes and offerings. I give thanks for each and every one of you that have joined us today for our service. If you're not familiar with Unity or Unity of Pasadena very deeply, very well, you're welcome to go to our website, unityofpasadena.org. You'll learn more about who we are as a ministry. You can also learn more about Unity as a whole at unity.org. So unity.org for Unity as a whole, unityofpasadena.org for our particular ministry. A reminder that we will have hospitality at 11:45, so you can find the links for that either in Facebook on the event or going to our website to the calendar, and you can click through and get the Zoom link there. So please know that wherever you are in your journey of faith, you are welcome here. And we will close with the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever I am, God is. Wherever God is, I am. Have a blessed week, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye. So we want to share it, is that correct? All right. Okay. Host video, you have the option of uploading it in high def. Isn't that interesting? Okay, but we just post to your timeline. That's the option that's automatically checked off. Okay. All right, so we'll let that go up, and then you just have to remember to go in and rename it or title it. It doesn't have a name.